If you are a human in society today, you are most likely experiencing low-grade chronic stress each and every day. And oftentimes we're unaware of it because we think that just because other people experience it, that it's normal. But just because it's common does not make it normal or optimal. Welcome to the Permission Slip podcast, where I, empowerment coach, mindset expert, and holistic nutritionist Carmen Oling, share with you the tools, conversations, and resources you need to write your own permission slip, take massive action, and become obsessed with your own life. Let's get started. My thought for this is maybe people don't really, they think, oh, low-grade chronic stress, like how does that affect me, right? And that's what we're talking about today. And so if someone's watching this on the replay, or for you, Kathy, like getting out a piece of paper and a pen and like writing down what are some of your daily stressors in life, really thinking about that. So when we think about that, oftentimes like the big ones come up, right? Like work, relationships, finances, maybe our own body image or health. Those oftentimes are a stressor. It could be something that's going on in the economy or the pandemic or what's happening in Ukraine. Different things like that could be a stressor on us. Maybe someone that's close to us is going through something really hard, and so we're worried about that. That could be a stressor on us. Oftentimes, those are the types of things when we think of stress. And so if we're not having any of those things, or all those things are going well, we often think that we don't have any stress. It's perceived in our logical mind that we don't have any stress. But reality is that we are all programmed for low-grade chronic stress, like each and every day of our lives, just by how we operate. And basically what that is it is from the moment that we get up, we're in this state of rushing, in this state of go, 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 in this state of doing, which turns on our fight or flight system, releasing cortisol into our body. And over time, this can cause hormone imbalance, fatigue, persistent negative thoughts, because we're out of our body in our head, negative thought loops, lack of focus, weight gain, and a lot of negative things in our health. So I sat down and I was like, okay, so when does stress first start in our day? So I made like this little list of daily stressors so people could start thinking of stress in a different way, because there is a couple different types of stress. So there is this low-grade chronic stress, or there is like stress, like when, you know, some like your dad's going through cancer treatment. I'm just thinking of things that have happened recently in my life. Those type of stress that we know that is going to be a stress, or maybe a good stress, like you have a pressure to like, let's see, I'm going to be showing up on TV next month in Michigan for a new studio that I've never been to and I've never met the people before. And so that'll put a type of stress on me, but it's like a good stress, like a good pressure. And I have resilience. And so I can move through that and it's not going to be wearing on me. And so, but low-grade chronic stress, if we're not aware of it, will be things like you wake up to an alarm clock. That's jarring right away. And maybe you're like, I'm going to push snooze. And so then the alarm clock goes off 2 or 3 more times. That's very jarring. And then you're in a rush state. And you're in a rush state. And so you're deciding what you're going to wear for the day. And because you're rushing, nothing fits right. And you're picking apart your body in the mirror. And then you get in the car and then there's traffic. And so all these things are little chronic stressors that we're not realizing in our life. And then maybe something's going on with your kids or someone at home, your significant other, there's coworker or client drama. And then you have to decide how to eat for the day if you haven't planned that out. You know, you've already decided what to wear and you're feeling like crap about it because you're rushing and those negative thought patterns are happening. Then you're trying to figure out when you're going to exercise, and you really should have meditated this morning, but you snooze. So then you're putting stress and pressure on yourself. See where I'm going with this. Then there's disruptions during your day. Then you decide it's a good idea to get on social media, and whether you know it or not, that is a stressor because you are always in the back of your head having comparison and judgment. Then you decide to eat while multitasking, and so your body cannot absorb the nutrients. And so now you have digestive stress. So we've already had emotional stress, environmental stress, digestive stress, and then you need to do errands. And because you're in a rest state from the morning, that's how you're operating all day long. You're finding joy in nothing. And then you have to decide on dinner, and you go home and you just want your significant other to pick it out, and they can't decide. And then you have to figure it out. And you are at decision fatigue, and then resentment builds. And then you're like, I'm just going to numb out with social media. And then whether you know it or not, you're comparing and judging again, and then you're feeling like crap, and your interactions with loved ones weren't good, and then you put pressure on yourself because you didn't do all the things on your to-do list for the day, and you're just going to do better tomorrow because you fucking suck today, and that is a day of low-grade chronic stress.
You just hit my life to the T.
So that's the thing. And why was it so easy for me to say that? Because I've been there like so many times. We've all been there. And I call it the treadmill of life. And so just to break down a little bit, I want to break down more of like the sciencey thing of what happens. So I wrote all this down to make sure that I'm not missing any key points, because I really want to understand, now that we're women and getting into 30s, 40s, and older, it's really important to understand how stress affects us and affects our bodies as women. So when there's a stressor, it hits our HPA axis first. That is like our natural surveillance system that's going to say like, oh, I smell fire. And so, or I smell smoke. So maybe there's a fire. I need to start looking. And so it picks up that threat and it sends it over to our hypothalamus. And our hypothalamus triggers a hormone that triggers our pituitary gland and our adrenals to release adrenaline. So that's where that hyped up state comes, where you hear sometimes like where someone's under a car and someone can like pick up a car or whatever because they have all this adrenaline, right? And so that's for acute, like in the moment. But then what else is released if the stressor maintains is cortisol. And so cortisol kicks in after that, and then it activates our stored blood sugar, which is in our muscles and our liver, which is, i.e., like, you know, carbohydrates, glucose. And so that goes into our bloodstream. And then because we have excess blood sugar in our bloodstream, then insulin is released to deal with that excess blood sugar. Now, like I said, there is a healthy stress, and it's called allostasis, and it's the ability to adapt to stress and be resilient. And so cortisol is actually can be a good thing because it helps regulate our blood pressure, our blood sugar, our immune system, our inflammatory markers, our energy balance, our willpower, our focus, our memory. So it can be a good thing. But the big deal here is with how we operate in society is go, 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 rush, 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 treadmill of life. I need to do everything today, pressure to prove, and all of that is that cortisol has us in this chronic survival mode. And so the load of stress that we have every day, day in and day out, is not something that our bodies can actually deal with. And it starts wearing over time. And so if you think of like a car wearing over time, so like I said, once we get to our 30s and 40s, so what happens once we're in low grade chronic stress, it can affect our muscles and bones, throws our hormones off, interrupts our digestion. Think about like if you eat really fast, or if you travel and you're on the go a lot and you're eating while multitasking, and oftentimes like maybe you'll feel like bloated, or when you're traveling and you don't like poop as much as you normally do, that's because there's digestive stress. And so, oh goodness, what else can it do? Let me look at my list here. It messes up your metabolism, cognitive function, immunity. I already said that. Message was with your sleep. But two of the biggest things for women that I want us to know about is that it can really mess up your blood sugar and your insulin. And so if you're in a chronic state of cortisol being released and you always have excess blood sugar and then insulin is coming, well, having excess blood sugar makes you have chronic inflammation in your body. And over time, that insulin release is going to do what's called, you're going to become insulin resistant. So we want to be insulin sensitive, so sensitive to it. We want the insulin to soak up the blood sugar. But if it's not soaking up the blood sugar, if we're becoming insulin resistant, because we're always in this chronic state, because we don't really need that blood sugar, because we're not actually in a fight or flight state, we don't need that excess energy, then what can happen is that inflammation causes so many different things. It's the precursor to everything. It is what I feel like, and this is my personal opinion, but I was diagnosed with MS when I was 25. It is really one of the precursors, inflammation is, to all autoimmune conditions. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I did a lot around that age. Like, I don't even know how I was functioning, honestly, based on like what I do now. The second thing, so blood sugar is one, and insulin, and being the precursor to all those inflammatory markers and diseases. But the second is it blocks progesterone. And so women need a good balance of estrogen and progesterone. And so progesterone is like your feel-good hormone. Like, we want it. But if it's being blocked, then what happens? We need to have the right balance of estrogen and progesterone. So then estrogen is too high in our body. And that's where you get the term of, being estrogen dominant. And some of those things that happen from that are fatigue, weight gain, heavy periods, breast tenderness, all of the things that we don't want, low libido, infertility, all of that. And so that just comes back to say, you could be exercising, you could be having the best morning routine, you could be nourishing your body, but if you have trained your nervous system to operate in this way every single day, then kind of, not that you're wasting your money, but this is what needs to be focused on. And so oftentimes we think we need to do more, especially around like losing body fat, or if that's a goal for us. Well, what happens is we're like pushing ourselves to do all these hard workouts and sweat. And if we're not sore, it's not working. If we're not sweating, it's not working. Well, oftentimes what happens is, even if we're exercising and doing all the HIIT workouts and we're eating all the right food and doing all the right things, because we're in low grade chronic stress, we're not going to lose the body fat. And women will often tend to gain weight around their midsection, around their stomach, even if they didn't have it before. I'm going to take a little drink here. So I just want you, because you're with me, and then everybody that's watching this on the replay, to understand, like, if you're trying to achieve a goal in your life, with your business, with your health, with whatever it is, like, it could all come back to this, that would make you more effective, that would make your brain more creative, that would allow you to lose the weight with ease, or get off the medication, or start feeling better, be happier, have better relationships, have better sex, whatever it is, because of low-grade chronic stress. The one thing I always think about, especially as it relates to like intimacy, is if you're stressed and you have a lot on your mind, like, that is not going to be a good experience for you. It never is for me. And so if you want to do one thing in order to improve that, then that's focusing on this. Okay, so I made a list of what I would say would be some of the root causes of stress for women in our community, and it all has to do with our thoughts. So the first one, putting pressure on ourselves, because when we think about pressure, like having a lot of pressure, most of the time it's not coming from an external source. When we're facing big changes, because what comes up when we're facing big changes? Oh, that old self of uncertainty, or when things are uncertain, then we want to retreat back because it's not comfortable. Even if where we're at is uncomfortable, at least we're familiar with the uncomfortable, shitty situation. So it's really hard to like push yourself out. when you're worrying about something, not having control over a situation or an outcome, having a lot of responsibilities. So maybe we're taking on too much. We're not saying yes to enough. We're not delegating. We're not asking for help. We're trying to be the one carrying 40 bags, opening the doors, doing all the things, and people are offering help and we're not doing it. Or not having enough in your life. Trauma is actually defined as too much, too soon, too fast, or too little. And it could just be like micro traumas. And then uncertainty. But if we think about all of those things, like none of those things would have meaning until we place meaning upon them in our own heads. And if we can separate ourselves from that and get back into our own bodies, get out of our head and into our bodies, and society has taught us from a young age how to abandon our bodies, how to seek outside of ourselves, how to model other people, how to look for answers, how to copy what other people are doing, and how not to listen to our inner selves. But there's something called like a somatic therapy, which is really cool because it uses sound and movement and different things in order to engage your senses to get out of your mind and back in your body. So I thought, okay, well, here's some sciencey information so we can all understand what we're doing to ourselves and how it's impacting every single part of our life. Because if we are under low-grade chronic stress, our relationships aren't going to be good. You know, our building our business is not going to be great. Our health is going to be suffering. And because our health is suffering, like everything else in our life is going to be suffering because we're not going to be taking care of ourselves, and it's just going to be on a downward spiral. So I wrote down 4 things that we can do in order to start getting out of low-grade chronic stress. So the first one is have a sense of urgency around our own deepest priorities. Because most of the time we have a sense of urgency around what other people want, and we try to be everything for everyone all the time, and it just doesn't work. So in order to have a sense of urgency around your own deepest priorities, that means you have to figure out what your own deepest priorities are. So when I ask the question to many women, what do you want? They often don't have an answer. And so sitting with that and really figuring out what are our deepest priorities. And then thinking about, okay, so with those deepest priorities, are you making these decisions based out of fear or based out of love? And what I mean by that is, are you maybe saying yes to something because if you said no, you're in fear of what someone might think, or you might feel bad, or you might feel guilty? That's out of fear. Are you saying yes to something because you know that you're excited about it and you're going to show up as your highest self? And oftentimes, especially as women, we are making decisions based out of fear versus love. And so it's like kind of a little barometer that you can use. And then when you think about what your deepest priorities are, think about being devoted to them. And I did a recent blog post and social media post and a newsletter on this, but like, what's the difference between being devoted or attached? And devotion is really that deep-seated, when you know it's your deepest priority, it's a high vibe energy, it's aligned with love. And then being attached to something, and it's funny, when I first started writing, what are my attachments? I was like, oh, everything, you know? But the attachments are going to be the things that are keeping you small, the things that are holding you back, the things that are keeping you safe in a lower vibration energy. And with that, it's really important to understand like what our core needs are, or our core wounding is. As we're growing up, we all are free and curious and wonderful. And then someone told us no. Someone told us we weren't good enough. Someone told us we didn't look right. We weren't smart enough. We couldn't do the thing. And so then we started building all these stories in our heads. And so oftentimes our deep core wounding goes back to things like just the need to feel loved, to be seen, to feel safe, to be accepted. I know for myself, I was taught really early on that you needed to be perfect. And that's who was rewarded. And so what would happen was I would start performing instead of presenting my authentic self. And so as I got older, it created a huge incongruency from who I was, my soul was, and who I was presenting myself as. And so you have to sit down and really understand, like, and be able to do the inner work to understand, okay, I am safe and accepted no matter what. And that still comes up every new level that I go to. Somehow that like acceptance piece always comes up, and I can perform like nobody's business, but I don't want to perform because I want to have interactions with people that are deep and meaningful and valuable. And I want to share from a vulnerable place to be able to make like deep connections with people. So understanding what your core wounds and needs are and when they come up. So to recap on that, just understanding what your core need is and understanding when they come up and how to move through that, being devoted and letting go of attachments. And attachments could be positive things or so-called positive things too. So they could be excessive working out maybe, or under eating because you're just trying to eat healthy food. They could be a lot of different things. And then having a sense of urgency around your own deepest priorities and making your decisions from love, not fear. Hey, Tani, your hair looks gorgeous. And you look very glowy and happy. I just want to tell you too. So we're almost to the end. So you kind of missed the whole beginning part, but that's okay. You could go back and watch. So to wrap up the conversation about low-grade chronic stress, I just wanted to do a little meditation. And so getting out of our head and getting back in our body is something that we can do every day through our breath. And so before we do the meditation, let me actually teach you this little somatic therapy thing. So, you know, when you're like in that frantic state and you have that feeling in your chest and it's like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, and you're trying to focus on one thing, it's hard to focus. And then you're thinking about like the next thing, or you're putting pressure on yourself around something. Here's what I want you to do. Right when you get that feeling, I just want you to sit for a minute, put your head, neck, and spine straight in alignment, and take a deep breath in through your nose, sigh it out through your mouth. And then I want you to use all of your senses. So I want you to look at something that you could see. So like right now, I can see like this beautiful building across the street. I want you to think of something that you can hear. So right now I could hear like there was a truck, and I could hear like the squeak of their brakes. What's something that you could smell? Interestingly enough, I'm outside, but I'm cooking butternut squash and broccoli right now in the air fryer, and I can smell it. What's something that you could taste? Can you taste anything in your mouth? Maybe you're like, ooh, there's a little chunk back there. Saving that for later. And then what's something you can feel? And so I'm just rubbing, I'm wearing like this cotton jumper, and it just, you know, it feels soft. And so instantly you're out of your mind and you're using all of your senses. And then you take another deep breath in and out. And then you just move on, or ask yourself, like, what do I need right now? Or what's most important for me to take care of right now in this moment? And maybe it's getting up from being in such a frantic state, getting outside, resetting yourself, going for a walk, calling a friend, drinking some water, doing like 5 jumping jacks, anything just to like get moving. But using your senses in that moment gets you out of your head and back into your body. Okay, and then I wrote out 4 mantras. So this is going to be a mantra meditation. And so it'll be short and sweet. We'll just go through the mantras twice. So sit comfortably with your feet flat on the floor. Just start noticing your breathing. Roll your shoulders and your head a little bit, because we often have just like so much tension there. You know, I was thinking the other day, I was like, my traps are always like, I feel like I have big traps. And I think it's because I'm often like pulling my shoulders up. working it out like every day. And when you're ready, just do like a light close of your eyes and just deepen your breath. And it doesn't matter how you're breathing, just do deep diaphragmatic breathing. So feeling your belly, then your chest, then out through your chest and through your belly. Just as you're breathing, repeat these affirmations to yourself after I say them. There's plenty of time and money for everything. I am most productive when I am focused and intentional instead of fast. It's okay to slow down. I don't have to get everything done today. There's plenty of time and money for everything. I am most productive when I am focused and intentional instead of fast. It's okay to slow down. I don't have to get everything done today. Take a couple more deep breaths, just in your nose and out. One more. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So he talks about in one of the chapters, focus. And I think that's one of the things that we need the most is focus, because low-grade chronic stress builds when we're trying to multitask, and multitask is really bullshit. And if we can focus, then we can do so much more in such a short amount of time. But he says focus is 100% about you. You're not making dinner plans that you don't have time for. You're not running errands that someone else sent you to do. And you're not immediately responding to every text, email, and phone call. You're protecting your mental space and creating control for yourself. Those 24 hours will still be there, waiting for you to choose how to use them. And so it's so true. We're in such a state of thinking that we need to respond right away, thinking that we need to say yes, thinking that we have to do all of these things. And we just keep abandoning ourselves over and over and over again for someone else's deepest priorities. And going back to that tip of, are we making the decision? Are we saying yes out of fear or out of love? And then lastly, he just gives a piece of encouragement, and something I've really been thinking about lately is curiosity, and how curiosity is like the most underutilized attribute that's out there. Like, how can we get more curious in our lives and those things that do bring us joy, not the never ending to-do list? And he says, experience everything. Experiment and wonder and dream and make it all happen. Winners welcome all the experiences because they never know which will take them to the next level. I'm not telling you to find balance where you take on a million things that don't help your goals, i.e. your deepest priorities. I'm suggesting that you embrace possibility and hope and new ways to learn and think. I'm telling you to dance like nobody's watching, even when they are. So let go and let loose just because you want to, not for anyone else but yourself. And so I loved that. I opened to those 2 pages because I had some marked and highlighted and everything. I was like, perfect message for tonight, right? Perfect message for tonight. So, and that's what it's all about. And we're used to doing or living life one way. And we have an opportunity to design and dream our life this way that we want to live. And who cares what everybody else is doing? And I know that's easy for me to say because I've been practicing this for years and years and years and years, but you can start now and you just take the smallest steps. Maybe it's saying no to something that you would usually say yes to, so you have a little bit of time to get curious about something for yourself. Maybe it's asking for help for your to-do list. Maybe it's just saying fuck it and just like going balls to the wall and doing something like really big. That could be it too. Like, why not? Yeah, right? Yeah, because that feels good too. And sometimes, so oftentimes we think that we need to be confident and like we have to know in order to do something, but confidence is not what comes first. Courage always comes first. And when you step out on courage, on faith, like there is going to be that little bit of nervousness. But the thing is, that energy of nervousness and anxiety is the same energy as excitement and joy and like going for something, and inspiration is just the thought that we put into it. So if we can get out of our logic mind that tries to slow us down, that fear-based ego self that tries to slow us down, and back into our bodies, we can be like, okay, this energy, I am making it into excitement and inspiration, and I'm going to go for it. And then when we do that and we step out more and more and more, that's when the confidence builds. And it just becomes easier and easier and easier and more joyful.